So I have decided to do the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl all in one video. I feel like it makes much more sense that way, and it's a huge time saver for everyone and myself. And the two college football playoff semifinal matchups will also be in one video because, again, I feel like this is a huge time saver for everyone and myself. So without further ado, let's get into these New Year's 6 bowl games, as we have a great lineup for this year's New Year's 6. The first one, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, the Florida Gators and the Michigan Wolverines. Now, I don't know who to pick in this game. I'm not looking forward to making a pick here because I feel like no matter who I pick is going to end up getting blown out in this game by 17 points. So that's a big concern for me, is I've picked both these teams in the past to win games that are huge, ones that matter, the ones that have a lot of meaning to it, and they've let me down in the past. So I'm worried it's going to happen to me again, but I got to make a pick for you guys. So in this matchup, what sticks out to me right away is, well, the huge question mark for this is which team will show up for each side. Which Michigan team will show up to the game? Which Florida team will show up to the game? Will it be the Michigan team that went on a 10-game winning streak after losing Notre Dame in opening weekend? Or will it be the Michigan team that played Ohio State? If it's the Michigan that played Ohio State, I think it's going to be a long afternoon for Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Which Florida team will show up? Will it be the Florida team that pulled off the upset against LSU and Mississippi State? Or will it be the Florida team that lost to Missouri, that lost to Kentucky, that had to come back in the second half against South Carolina, the game where Felipe Franks had to hush his own crowd? So which team will show up for each of these two teams? So that's the first thing that sticks out to me. The other thing that sticks out to me is the running game for each of these teams, because both of these teams, they're top 10 in pass defense. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of running in this game because that's the weakness for each of these teams' defenses. But I think Michigan's run defense is a little bit better than Florida's run defense is. Well, it's kind of a lot. Michigan's 16th, Florida 73rd. So it's a huge difference there. But my concern is, with no Rashawn Gary and no Devin Bush, two of your biggest defensive players on that defense are not playing in this game. So that is what I think is going to be a difference, is can the Michael P. Ryan and Jordan Scarlett, can they run through the holes? Can they make it past those replacements that are going to be replacing those two? I think those two not being in that game is going to be huge for Florida's running game. And I think that could be the difference. Another difference is I think which quarterback can make the plays. Felipe Franks going to have to make plays for Florida. Shea Patterson's going to have to make plays for Michigan. And it could also be as well, which quarterback makes the plays will win the game for their team. But ultimately, what I'm not looking forward to making is the prediction. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game because New Year's 6 bowl games, they're typically high-scoring. They've been high-scoring recently. But the way I see this, I think Rashawn Gary and Devin Bush, on their not being there on defense, and Karan Higdon not being there, the running back for Michigan, he's sitting out in this game as well. I think Florida takes advantage of these missing Michigan players. And I think Florida picks up the upset 23-17. I think it's going to be pretty decent scoring, but it's going to be low scoring compared to other New Year's 6 bowl games. So I think Florida picks up the upset against Michigan. Next, we've got the Fiesta Bowl between the UCF Knights and the LSU Tigers. Now, what sticks out to me right away is UCF has to express their strength. They have to assert their strength right away in this game, the running game. The two-headed monster of Greg McCrae and Adrian Killings. Those two have to be a difference. They got to step up for UCF. They've got to step up if they want to have a chance against LSU. And the way I see this, Mackenzie Milton, he was the heart and soul. He was the glue to UCF's winning streak. And with him not playing, but he is going to be there with the team. Could that be motivation for UCF's performance in the game? Obviously it will. However, here's what I don't like. I don't like UCF's run defense. It's one of the worst in college football. I believe it's ranked 117th. and Nick Brossette for LSU. I think he's going to have a huge game. However, can UCF's offense make some plays? That's going to be the question mark because there's going to be no Ed Alexander and there's going to be no Greedy Williams in this one. But Devin White is going to play. And the difference, I think, is going to be the fact that LSU, I think they're going to take advantage of a backup quarterback being in the game. I think they're going to get to Darrell Mack pretty easily. I feel like if LSU eliminates UCF's running game early on, I think there's going to be no way that UCF can win this game. That's what I think that LSU is going to do. I think LSU takes out UCF's running game early on in the second half, and I think LSU will have to maybe come from behind in this one even. I think LSU comes back and wins this. I'm going to say it's not going to be a blowout, but I think LSU will win by double digits. I think LSU is going to win 31-21. I think UCF will put some points on the board against LSU's defense, but I just think LSU, I think they're going to be in it for the long haul longer than UCF will. I think UCF will stay in the game for quite a while, but I don't think they'll be able to stay in for the full 60 minutes this time around. I like LSU to win this matchup. Next we have what I think will be my favorite bowl game of the season, the Rose Bowl between the Washington Huskies and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And the first thing that sticks out to me is kind of the headlines for this game. Is both these teams, they want to go out with a win in the Rose Bowl to submit the legacy. For Ohio State, win for the keeper mentality. Urban Meyer's last game as the Ohio State head coach, maybe even a college football coach altogether, because Urban Meyer announces his retirement earlier in the month. After the Rose Bowl, that will be it. He's passing on the coaching duties to Ryan Day. And for Washington, the senior class, Jake Browning, Myles Gaskin, two of the biggest leaders in that Washington senior class. Washington will want to go out with a win in the Rose Bowl to submit that legacy, because this is going to have a huge impact. If Washington wins this game, it's going to have a huge impact on recruiting, because this is the best senior class that Washington's had. One of, if not the best in school history. If you look at their resume, a college football playoff appearance, Pac-12 championship, Pac-12 championship. This Washington senior class, they have a great resume to look back on. And the only thing that is missing in this one is a win in a big-time bowl game. And winning the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, that will be significant for that legacy. However, here's what I think is going to happen in this game. I think Ohio State, they may feel like they were robbed of a spot in the college football playoff. And I think they play the chip on their shoulder in this game. They want to win for Urban Meyer for his last game, well, potentially his last game as a college football head coach, because he's retired before and came back. So I think Ohio State, they play with a chip on their shoulder for these three reasons. One, they want to win for Urban Meyer. Two, they feel like they were robbed out of a spot in the college football playoff. And a best way to take your anger out on the committee is to completely beat up on Washington. And the third thing, they just want to win just to win. After everything they've been through this season with the scandal and the domestic violence thing, with Urban Meyer covering up the text messages and the domestic violence situation, winning the Rose Bowl for Ohio State, it would mean a lot for them after what they've been through this season and what they've been through throughout the last 4 months of the season, maybe in 5 months of the season. And I think Ohio State picks up a win in this Rose Bowl. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I am looking forward to it, but I'm going to say in the end, Ohio State wins this one in a shootout. I'm going to say 55-49. I think it's going to be that high-scoring of a game, but Ohio State, they go out and win in Urban Meyer's last game as a college football head coach, potentially. So the final New Year's Six game that's not a college football playoff semifinal, the All-State Sugar Bowl between the Texas Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, both these teams, they have one thing in common. They both lost in their conference championship games in heartbreaking fashion. Well, Texas, it wasn't that heartbreaking. They had a lead early on. In Georgia, they had a more heartbreaking of a loss in their conference championship game because they had the lead, or they were tied with Alabama for 58 minutes of that game. And Georgia may also feel like they were robbed of a spot in the college football playoff. And for Texas, this would be huge to pull off, maybe play a little bit of a spoiler for Georgia. The question is, does Georgia want to be there? Does Georgia feel like they should be in the Final Four, in a way, in the semifinals? If Texas can take advantage of that, because the last time Georgia lost the SEC championship game, they ended up playing Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl, and there was a huge question mark. Does Georgia want to be there? I think Georgia wants to be there because they still have a decent prize of going to a New Year's Six bowl game. But Texas, they seem to want this more. And I think Texas is going to play their A game. I think the difference in this game is going to be the wide receivers. I think the Texas receivers versus the cornerbacks in this one. Well, the wide receivers, cornerbacks on each side of the football. I think the wide receiver and cornerback battle, that's going to be a huge difference. Because I think that's kind of where the game is won, with catching the football or defending the pass. And the way I see this, I think Georgia picks up the win. I think Georgia, they want to make a statement in this game. They want to make a statement by beating up on Texas. And the running game of Elijah Holyfield for Georgia and DeAndre Swift, I think that's a huge factor in that one as well. And for Texas, quarterback Sam Ehlinger, is Texas back? This could be a point that Texas can make. They could make a statement in this game on New Year's Day by beating a team like Georgia to express that Texas is back, and it could be a huge momentum shift for next season. But in the end, though, I think Georgia is going to give Texas all they can handle. I feel like Texas is going to have their hands full with Georgia, as I think Georgia is going to play with a chip on their shoulder in this game. I think they win by a solid amount. I think Georgia wins this ball game. I'm going to say 38-21. I think Georgia wins this pretty convincingly. I think Texas, they're going to compete pretty well. But I think in the second half, I think Georgia is going to put the pedal down in the second half of the game. So those are my New Year's Six games that are not the college football playoff semifinals. So be sure to be on the lookout for the college football playoff semifinal matchup prediction video, and I'll see you next time.